Snaps good, holds good, kick on the way by Conradi, end over end, and it is good! Kyle Conradi hit a 54-yard field goal, and Iowa State leads it 20-19! Oh my goodness!
What's up, everybody? Happy New Year, happy 2025, and welcome back into the Iowa State Fan Perspective. As always, brought to you by us here at Play the Fight Song College Football Show. You are coming to us tonight after a couple of surprising college football playoff quarterfinal games between Oregon and Ohio State, Arizona State and Texas. As Iowa State fans, we will definitely jump into thoughts on Arizona State and the state of the Big 12 in the college football playoff. But the meat of the show, the bulk of the show, will be covering Iowa State's awesome victory in the Pop Tarts Bowl, aka the new college football national championship. As always, joined by my brother Justin, my co-host. Justin, I haven't really talked to you since the new year has been rolling around. How are we doing tonight? What's your initial thoughts on maybe bowl season or just these college football playoff games today?
I'm doing good. Had a pretty chill New Year. Spent most of it watching football. Pretty much just watched that Boise State Penn State game last night. So I don't know. It was good that Iowa State won the Pop Tart Bowl. Really exciting game. And some of those, I mean, a lot of people talk about like how the bowl games don't matter. They don't mean as much as they did anymore. But with all the toxicity around the playoff, just watching the Pop Tart Bowl specifically and some of those other bowl games was just such a good, fresh change of pace. And I honestly had just a lot of enjoyment watching some of those games.
Well, we're going to get into all of that tonight. We're really meant to talk about the Miami-Iowa State game, but with it, we might just free range the show and kind of see where it goes. But we definitely have our thoughts on the Cyclones and their victory. But as always, our episodes are partnered by our friends at No Rivals, shopnorivals.com. If you were a bad family member and forgot your Christmas present this year, use the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping. Get your relative a nice hat at shopnorivals.com as a makeup gift because they're the best hats in all of college sports. Justin, let's start there. I do want to start because it's fresh in our mind and we might be the first one to jump on it. Even though this is an Iowa State show, I do want to get my thoughts out on the playoff in general, and in particular, the Arizona State-Texas game. Is it fair to say that even though we've started the new year in 2025, a Big 12 team continues to get screwed over playing Texas? So one would say new year, same shit. I don't know. Am I overreacting in saying that?
I mean, in what way are you saying they got screwed over outside of the – are you just talking about the targeting, the missed targeting call? Or
Yep.
I thought that was pretty wild. I mean, if that's not targeting – I don't really know what is. The defender didn't really drop his hips or get low at all and just kind of smashed his head through the Arizona receiver's helmet. But, I mean, you could talk about that if you want to. I was going to talk about the game as a whole.
Well, how about it really pisses me off that, I mean, the referees and just like the rules makers of college football have made the bed for themselves with this quote unquote targeting rule. I don't know what targeting is. I don't think anybody does, but that's not the point. What we've been calling basically all game, all season, since we've made this rule, that was targeting. And for people to say, well, you don't call it in the last minute of a game when it's important and stakes are on the line. Yes, you do. It's a rule in the game. You call it whenever it is. I don't care if it's the first exhibition game of the year or you're playing an FCS team up 49-0. Or your national championship's on the line. You officiate the game how football is supposed to be officiated. I don't know. And also, if we really want to get into talking about it, I thought Kenny Dillingham should have gone for it on 4th and 5, even when they didn't get that targeting call. But that's what I had to say. I had to get that off my chest. I know that some people disagree, but I don't want to listen to them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what there is to disagree with. Obviously, you don't want the game decided on a call, but the targeting rule is there for player safety, and that was a play where the guy clearly led with his head, hit another guy in the head. That's pretty much exactly what targeting is, and he was down and out for a while, which you definitely don't want to see. So I don't really have any explanation as to why they made the call the way they did. It just sucks that Arizona State wasn't able to finish it out after having the strong second half that they did, because it was a great second half. It was one of the best halves of any teams in the playoffs so far. It was great runs with Cam Scattaboo and just the heart that Arizona State team showed. It just sucks that like it ended the way it did, and everyone's got like this kind of bad taste in their mouth from it now.
I do want to say, in retrospect, I don't blame officials on games. Like, that's not the reason that Arizona State lost the football game. You got to capitalize inside the red zone in the first half. You got to get touchdowns or just points, and they straight up didn't. And then, yeah, I mean, you had 4th and 13 with the season on the line, and you just, frankly, it was a bad play call on the blitz, and Texas Max protected, and Golden was wide open once again, and he's the one guy you couldn't leave open. So I'm also saying that Arizona State lost the game themselves, but a penalty call going their way could have altered that, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I don't know what it is about these playoff games. They just kind of got me exhausted. I don't even know. Just the talk.
This one was the best game of the weekend. It's been the best playoff game we've gotten so far.
That was such a fun game.
But as Iowa State fans, as Big 12 fans, we're exhausted. I texted you. I said I don't remember this is the last time I have been so mad after a loss that wasn't either Cyclones related or
a team that just beat us too.
Yeah, Colts related. You know, it's my crappy NFL team.
In the Big 12, I know we're a Power 4 conference, but a lot of those teams still kind of got to rally around each other with where the money's at and where the media is kind of pushing this, and where like corporations and media is kind of pushing this sport to where it's going. Even after the game, Deion Sanders was tweeting at Kenny Dillingham and shouting him out for representing the Big 12 pretty well. And I think that's a huge thing too, because it shows how good that Arizona State team was. And a lot of the stuff that they were doing in Iowa State, they may have started slow, but they still ended up proving pretty well. They run blocked really well. They got really tough corners, got really tough receivers.
Simmons,
they're able to hold their own on the lines of scrimmage, and Cam Scattaboo runs like a maniac. And Sam Levitt's pretty good at making plays on his own too.
Simmons was a difference maker in the second half. Who knows how that game goes? I mean, it's probably about the same thing, but if he plays in the first half, Simmons was the hard-hitting safety who didn't play in the first half because of his hit on Rocco Becht back in Dallas. And he also was the one who caused the safety fumble, which basically turned the momentum around for Arizona State. So that hurts for them. But he made his own bed by just a deliberate hit when they were already up 30 against Iowa State. So that's, again, nobody to blame but themselves there. But let's transition that conversation, because I think it's Iowa State related, Justin. I believe the Big 12, with that loss, the Big 12 has now finished up its bowl games. This is the last bowl game or playoff game, whatever you have for the Big 12. How do you think the Big 12 represented itself? I know we're, recency bias, right? We're going to base a lot of it on Arizona State, but we'll go through some of the other bowl games. And how do you think the Big 12 represented itself this year? And is there a path for them? I think they set a pretty good standard for maybe getting in 2 teams next year, again, depending on how all this plays out.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely quality enough to get 2 teams in. I mean, once you start getting around to that 12, 11, 13 range, I mean, there's no reason there can't be 2 Big 12 teams in there. I think Arizona State showed that they could hang with one of the best teams in the country, one of the best teams in the SEC in Texas. I think BYU showed how good they can be and playing a good Colorado team, which a lot of people favored. Iowa State went out there, and I know Cam Ward didn't play that second half, but Iowa State hung in there in the first half and then ended up beating, which a lot of people think may have been the best team in the ACC. A lot of really good teams. Kansas State kind of messed around in the first half of their game, but they ended up beating a good Big Ten team.
There were a lot of teams that couldn't beat Big Ten teams, especially yesterday. So not everybody can beat the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, the Big Ten's been having themselves a good bowl season too, but I think the Big 12 definitely had a good bowl season. Showed they could have got a couple more wins, but I'm pretty pleased with it.
It's funny because, we see Alabama obviously just have another horrendous offensive performance against a JV Michigan defense because all their guys opted out for the NFL draft. And then you saw South Carolina lose to Illinois. And I did see one big Twitter account finally tweet, hey, maybe our arguments were wrong all along. Maybe we messed up by not getting BYU in over, the team they beat, SMU. So the conversation I don't know. It won't be brought up by ESPN, but I think the conversation between knowledgeable fans in this college football landscape that I don't know. I think the Big 12 did earn its respect with Arizona State and honestly BYU, even though they did play Colorado, I guess, another Big 12 opponent, but was the Heisman Trophy winner.
They shut him down and the potential number 1 pick. And I thought they did a really good job against Shador too.
So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, and everything will play out itself. Looking back, do I think BYU should have been in? I mean, it would have been nice, but it is what it is.
They weren't getting in over those other SEC teams because, I mean, SMU, they did lose to BYU, but that was a super early game in the season, which matters, and they went the whole year, and that was their only loss. So, I mean, they weren't counting the conference championship losses against them. So,
I told you this is going to be a free range show, and as we were kind of going through this conversation, I also thought about early 2025 looks, and we'll talk about Iowa State and briefly what 2025 looks for them. But what held the Big 12 back this year, and a lot of people have talked about it, Justin, is that the preseason rankings and the fact that who were your preseason ranked teams in the Big 12 this year? Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Those weren't even your top 4 teams in this league. Next year, your top 3 or 4 will probably be Iowa State, Arizona State, and BYU. And all 3 of those teams return a healthy amount of their starters coming off of one team won 11 games. Arizona State won 11 games, 12 games. And then BYU also won 11 games. So next year, the pressure is going to be on those 3 teams, kind of like it was for Utah this year. Like, hey, if this is a Big 12 team effort here to get the most teams we can get into the playoff, those 3, it's going to be, the pressure's on. And Iowa State's one of them. To have you got to respond and do what you did this year again.
And I think it's going to make it even that more difficult because we know how chaotic the Big 12 is. I mean, even if you didn't have these bullseyes on your back, it's already going to be very parity driven. There's going to be a lot of chaos in it. And especially like when these teams had the success, like you're not really going to be able to sneak up on any teams. And I think that's going to make it that much more tough, which this could just be what the Big 12 is every year. The preseason rankings are going to end up looking pretty silly every year. And it's going to be people to talk about. And that's the thing that sucks is how much the preseason rankings matter because as we know, if it was Oklahoma State and Utah, who ended the year 11-2 and 10-2, they're both
correct
in the playoff probably, or fringe. Well, I guess with the Clemson win, you never know, but fringe playoff contenders. So it's just going to be something that the Big 12 is going to have to deal with for at least the foreseeable future with this format. And that's why bowl games like the Pop Tart Bowl for us can't really take for granted. Got to enjoy it. And that's why there's no shame in the 11-2 season we had, and one of the best seasons in Iowa State history is like up there for me.
Well, that's the funny thing, right? You know, these quote unquote bowl games don't matter, but I mean, you feel as an Iowa State fan, you feel a lot better squeaking out a 1-point win than you did if you lost that football game, and you feel a lot better about maybe where Iowa State will be ranked next year. I've heard this conversation on other podcasts before, like people who set the AP poll, they don't watch all of the football games. So they probably watched that. A lot of AP voters probably watched 3 games for Iowa State this year, maybe even less. And one of them, I guarantee, was the Pop Tart Bowl. And they're like, oh, wow, that was a good win against Miami. They got a lot of people coming back next year. Iowa State's just going to be one of those teams that gets the benefit of the doubt, because you got to imagine this is I would say it's a top 20. Iowa State, I think they're a top 20 team ranked next year. I mean, a lot could happen in the portal and all that good stuff in college football right now, but feels to me this is a top 20 team next year.
I hope so. I mean, we're overturning a lot of players in the secondary and on the D line and then at the receivers, which we really know, but bringing back coach and quarterback and a lot of key pieces, running backs too. So it's definitely going to be a really good start for us. I mean, if you want to use that to transition to the game, bringing back Rocco after, I don't know, one of his top 3 games as a Cyclone.
Yes, we will talk about Rocco Becht. We will talk Pop Tarts. We'll talk all of that as we transition. But as we do that, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We cover a lot of great things here. Play the Fight Song, all college football content as we're heading into the dark season of February, March, April, we still got you covered for all of your college football content. And if you guys are watching us live here on YouTube, jump in the comments. Let us know your thoughts on the Big 12. Cyclone fans, let us know all your thoughts on the Pop Tart Bowl, whatever you have. We'd love to interact with you as we're covering this on here on New Year's Day Eve. But let's do it. Let's talk about the Pop Tart Bowl. Iowa State gets it done in Orlando, 42-41. The Cardiac Cyclones come back and put together another game-winning drive led by Rocco Becht, which, Justin, what was that? Was that 4 this year? If I'm thinking right, Iowa, UCF, Utah, and Miami. Unless am I missing one? I don't think I am.
No.
I guess, and you could even count Texas Tech, but they gave up the touchdown at the end of the game. So this offense puts together its 5th game-winning, go-ahead winning drive, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's just a lot goes wrong in this game. A lot of weird and different things happen. But Justin, the one thing that stayed constant through it all, and Matt Campbell said it in his post-game interview, you play tougher for longer. And this team battles through injuries and all the adversity they've faced this year. And they found a way to get it done to win 11 games, the most in program history. What are your initial thoughts on the whole game in general?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think as a fan you can be any more proud of being like a fan of Iowa State this year, just showing the toughness and the grit that this team showed. Just makes it a lot more fun to root for a team like that. I mean, there were a lot of moments this year. I wouldn't say this was the most skilled or most talented team in the Big 12 this year, or there was a lot of teams that had higher recruits, a lot more noise around them. But like you said, Iowa State battled, and they battled for all 4 quarters in almost every single game they played this year. And that's the difference in a lot of one-score games. I mean, there's so many games in college football that are decided by one score. And it's that heart and that grit that this team showed that can be the difference between winning and losing a lot of those games. And we've been on the other side of a lot of those matchups, and it's not every time that's going to work out for you. I mean, some of the best players that we've had were those Brock Purdy teams where they really struggled in one-score games. So I just don't think after having a season that we just had, it's just definitely not something that we can take for granted or expect for it to just happen again next year. I mean, this is the time of the year where you got to appreciate the season that we just had and the guys, the seniors, and everything that was just taking place over the last 5 months.
I do have to give a shout out to our first commenter of the night, Jay Bird. He said he's so happy to be wrong. Jay Bird, so am I, because me and you were pretty eye to eye on where we thought Miami would get this done. And obviously, Justin, in our predictions, we thought we knew, I guess we were pretty sure that Cam Ward would play, and he did. And I guess the word was getting out that
it was a problem.
I didn't know this, but apparently it was known that he wasn't people knew he wasn't going to play the second half. The guys who are in the media knew that. And I didn't. And I was surprised to see that, to be honest. But then again, I also forgot about his record, which, funny enough, could have been broken by Dylan Gabriel tonight had Oregon not just laid the biggest egg of all time. So that being said, let's start there. Cam Ward plays the first half. Obviously, bowl games are just bizarre, and he's just carving up Iowa State. But you did get a couple of good turnovers early, but other than that, you couldn't stop the nosebleed. It was very demoralizing and very, very tough to watch because, Justin, we said this, John Haycock's dime stack is just not going to stop Cam Ward. I mean, the guy, it was that video surfaced on Twitter where he literally stood flat-footed there for 3 seconds, like he was in 7-on-7, just like there's a shot clock in your head, and that's going to be the sack. So
we didn't have the players to effectively use the defense to go up against an offense that good. I mean, we weren't getting pressure. We can't guard for that long, and it's a bend but don't break defense. But when you've got the amount of time and playmaking that he had, I mean, he was just sitting there and picking us apart. And even when we get down to the red zone, they just had too many weapons for us to account for. And it was a problem. But, Iowa State was still keeping up with them in the first half. And they played the game that we've been asking for all year. And it's obviously asking for a lot for you to be perfect. But they won the penalties and they won the turnover battle. And that was ultimately the difference. And they needed all that if they were going to end up getting a win.
They also won the guts battle because Justin, you texted me as soon as it happened when Mario Cristobal voted to kick a field goal on the 3-yard line to go up 41-35. Right? Yeah, 41-35. You texted me, this game isn't field goals don't win this game. And I thought that was
We don't kick field goals in the Pop Tart Bowl.
I mean, you don't.
Too much is at stake.
And also, why did he I mean, that was one of the most boneheaded. I mean, we've seen Mario Cristobal.
It was lazy.
Like, I'm very public about his game making decisions down the stretch, and that showed. You're running the ball for like 7 yards a carry, and you voted to just kick the field goal to go up 6 points. When also you're running for 6 yards a carry, and your defense. I mean, they played a little better in the second half, but it's not like they were prone to stopping this Iowa State team that was playing with good momentum. It was just a horrible decision.
I think it was just laziness and arrogance a little bit, thinking that
100%.
Iowa State wasn't going to go down and score a touchdown, and they didn't feel like they needed it, and they didn't think about it that hard, clearly.
Let's go back. Let's transition a little bit because I do want to just talk about it because it was talked about a lot on like the national media landscape of college football. Is Cam Ward's, opting out of the second half. What were your initial thoughts on, like, is it shitty of him to bail out on his teammates? Do you think it's like a leadership problem? Do you think fans should be just happy he played in the first half? And I guess we can get to the topic, like, does Iowa State win the game if he plays the full
game? No, I don't think Iowa State wins if he plays the whole game. I love the way they battled. I mean, they were only down 3 at halftime, wasn't it? 31-28.
31-28.
So
yep.
They were hanging in there. So I guess you can never say never. Maybe they end up turning them over. But the way things were going, Miami had 2 turnovers in the first half, and Iowa State had none. They still needed all that just to be down 3 because their offense was humming that well. We didn't really have any answers for them, and they were really showing the holes in our defense. But I don't really think people should be crushing them as much as they are. Yeah, it sucks to like the optics of him just standing there and watching him on the sideline. But in today's era, with how many guys are sitting out of bowl games, and when he's pretty much a guaranteed top 3 pick in the NFL draft, I mean, I thought it was pretty cool that he at least played a half for him, and he was still there with his guys.
And for the Miami situation, the Miami part of this is that Emory Williams is, by all case in point right now, is their guy next year. And so I know, like, following Miami stuff on Twitter, like, some of them kind of wanted Williams just to play the whole game because obviously it wasn't as important to them because they're Miami. They're above everybody. Of course they think that. But they wanted Williams to play because right now he's the guy, and they wanted to see what they got. And then you threw him in the second half, and he was cold, and he was terrible. I mean, Justin, you had his stats down here in our notes. I have to go back and look. 5 of 14 with 26 yards. And the only reason they were winning in the second half at any point is because I believe they ran the ball every single play on the first possession of the second half when they scored. So they could have done that with Cam Ward or not. Yeah, right. Completely agree.
As they should have. I mean, they averaged 9.5 yards per carry in the first half, and then 6.5 in the second half, which was 3 yards. 6.5 still isn't really going to win you many games, but it was still an improvement over how they played in the first half. I mean, that rushing attack, this Iowa State defense had a lot of holes in it.
It did. I want to save that conversation for later. I do want to kind of address the defense a little bit, but just the case in point I wanted to make is Williams could have played the whole game. And I think as a Miami fan, that would have been very concerning. Like, as a fan, I think as a Miami fan, you're coming out of this like, woof. Like, we just had a top 3 pick next year in the NFL draft. We blew our chance at a 12-team playoff by choking the last 3 games because we can't play defense. And now we don't really know what we have with this kid right now. And the portal's kind of closing. And I know there will be a spring window, but there's not many quarterbacks left. And you could have played him the whole game. And I think Iowa State wins by, I don't know, Justin, you put the number. If the offense starts the way they did, 21 points, I think it's fair to say. I don't see that team scoring 17 points.
At the end of the day, it's still a team sport. I mean, obviously having a top 3 draft pick come in at quarterback and then leave the game is a huge deal. But you look at teams lose their quarterbacks all the time. I mean, if you just look at it like it's an injury, people would have still expected Miami to win this game. I mean, injuries like that happen all the time. Like you look at the SEC championship, Carson Beck goes down when they're losing and they come back and win the game with their backup. Obviously, Miami's backup isn't near the quality of quarterback that Cam Ward is, but you still have to battle. And Iowa State's defense, they did step up in that second half, giving up only 1 touchdown.
And in the fourth quarter, too, like especially the fourth quarter.
In the last 3 possessions, they only gave up 3 points. So as bad as they played in the first half, they didn't give up and they kept fighting. And I think that's kind of an overarching theme of this whole team, and something that, although they had a different quarterback in, that is a real positive that you can take away from. And it's a real culture builder and team setter.
And you can also, like, as Miami fans, like, or just, Hawkeye Twitter was also fired up about, you're lucky Cam Ward didn't play in the second half. Well, Darian Porter didn't play, and he would have been nice out there to cover if we're out there covering for 10 seconds at a time. He's an NFL corner. And Jaden Higgins didn't play either. And you saw what Jalen Noel did by himself. We'll talk about him in a second. But by himself, he had 120 yards. Could you imagine if they had to focus on Higgins and Noel? They both would have went over 120 plus yards. Like, I thought Isaiah Alston did some nice things. I thought it was nice to see him there. I wanted to see him in that spot. He deserved that spot, I think. After having a disappointing season, I think he thought he was going to have a bigger role. So that was good to see. But there was a couple times, man, like Jaden Higgins would have had a field day against that secondary.
I mean, Iowa State was down Jaden Higgins and Ben Bramer, 2 of their 3 best pass catchers. They were down Onyedem and Snyder from the transfer portal, also lost Ellis. Bo Freiler goes down early in the game. Porter doesn't play. I mean, Iowa State was down like 7 of their starters from this season. Correct. So for them to keep battling and play the way they did, I mean, it's not like the game was just handed to them. And all those other guys from Miami, they had NFL guys playing. Like we talked about, they got NFL talent all across the board. Davey Martinez is a great running back.
Correct. That's what I wanted to say too. When you put the backups in the second half, Iowa State's playing with backups. Miami's playing with backups. You know the difference? We have kids that are from the state of Iowa that are like walk-ons. And they still have 4 or 5 stars that are their 3rd, 4th, and 5th stringers. And Miami fans, they're a little bit of wild fan base, but they're not a dumb fan base. And I sent you the message board thing on Twitter where some Miami fans said, it doesn't even matter if Ward's not playing. Our 4 and 5 stars are still getting cooked by some Iowa white boys. So it was pretty obvious. Like, it's not like Miami didn't have any talent once Cam Ward left. Like Emory Williams, higher ranked recruit than Rocco Becht. He was a 4-star. He was one of the best pocket passers in his class.
And to anyone that's still listening, I feel like that's what the great thing about bowl games is. I know, obviously, they don't really mean as much going into the next season, but they're a reflection of what you are as a team from the top to bottom and throughout your whole culture, because the games don't mean as much as far as getting money or winning a national championship, but what kind of culture and what kind of team do you have around you? How deep is your roster? Where's the buy-in? Is the level of coaching still there? And how much do the guys like playing with each other? I mean, what kind of effort are they giving in these games? I think those are things that still matter, because at the end of the day, only one team is going to be a national champion, and they're repeatedly the same number of teams every year. So where are your expectations with college football? What's the point of building a team and building a program? And that's just something that made this bowl game so fun for me, because it's something that Iowa State and Matt Campbell's been building for years now. And in games like this, they can really showcase where they're at compared to where they used to be. Where they are to other teams in the country, like a Miami that's got the big names, big recruits.
Correct.
And doesn't do the little things that Iowa State harps on so much. When Matt Campbell does all of the coach speak that he does, that everyone gets upset about, or some people may not understand, games like Saturday are what he's talking about, in the moments that they're building for. That's a program, not just a team.
Very well said. And you could also tell, just how the game finished. You could tell that game just meant so much more to Iowa State. Like, you tell a lot about, you mentioned the word program, you mentioned the word culture. You find out a lot about what a team culture is like and how the program is ran in these bowl games when you have guys who opt out, when the fourth quarter comes around, there's maybe 25% capacity in a stadium. You find out what guys really love playing football and what guys really love playing football for their head football coach. And you could just see the excitement on Iowa State. Like when they got that pick, like that meant something to them, man. And that was really, really cool.
And I've seen people try to like brush away bowl losses, like, oh, that team didn't really care. Well, that's kind of an indictment on your team. I mean, because like, what's the point of you playing? It's like, yeah, you're just trying to make the playoff so you can show up and lose in the playoff. What's better than that, than actually finishing out the season and starting from when these guys start in February, March, and finishing the season in December? I mean, isn't that what you want to do, is finish the job that you started? I wanted to see Matt Campbell take a Pop-Tart out of the toaster. That's what we're playing for.
That was the most Matt Campbell thing of all time. First of all, he can't break the Pop-Tart, and he's getting a little pissed off that he can't break the Pop-Tart. And then he's like, I'm not going to shove my face with Pop-Tarts on national television. This is not what I do. So he just chucks the Pop-Tart into the crowd, and he gets off the stage as fast as he could. It was incredible. It was the most Matt Campbell moment of all time, and I couldn't stop smiling by how funny it was. Because
I needed that video of Rocco Becht and Matt Campbell sharing a Pop-Tart on national television. I just needed that out there. It wouldn't the year would not have felt like it ended as good if that video didn't exist. Iowa State gets their first 11-win season ever. We're eating Pop-Tarts. What's better than this?
And you mentioned too, Justin, like you mentioned the playoff. But clearly everybody wants to make the playoff. Like if that's a lot of programs' goals, especially in the 12-team era now. But I'm not saying I wish Iowa State would have been in the playoff. That'd been awesome. But let's take a temp check with Tennessee fans and Iowa State fans right now. One team had big expectations in their playoff game and got absolutely drubbed. And now there's like Nico's maybe putting some things on social media. They're like, is he in the portal? Like, where are they going with that? You know, they're like, is this team still up to par with the standard of the SEC in our conference? And then you have Iowa State on the other hand. You have a coach who signed an 8-year extension. You just beat a Miami team who's really good. Yeah, you didn't make the playoff. You didn't win your conference, but you won 11 games. You won a big bowl game against Miami. And sometimes, I don't know, we just take for granted things sometimes. And I think that, I think Iowa State fans are knowledgeable enough to enjoy this win.
Yeah, and it's not even enjoying not like reaching your final goals, because obviously we want to win the Big 12 and make the college football playoff. But like, what are you chasing? You're chasing just a certain amount of wins so you can make the playoff this year, or are you chasing trying to build a team? I mean, yeah, you look at like Tennessee and compare them to Iowa State, or you look at like Michigan and Bama and that other bowl game. And Michigan obviously had college football playoff expectations at the beginning of the season, but they knew pretty quickly that they weren't going to hit that. But they kept fighting this year. They didn't phone it in. They didn't give up. They end up beating Ohio State at the end of the year. They end up beating Bama. And look what Alabama did.
Bama did, yes.
They end up not making the playoff. They bitch and moan about it and they quit. So what kind of team and what kind of team and culture they have there? And what's the point of playing the season?
Absolutely. There's 134 teams out there. This ain't the NFL where half the league makes the playoff. Only about 10% of the league makes the playoff. And sometimes you just got to enjoy what you get. So we'll put some finishing touches on Iowa State in its 2024 season. But Justin, I do want to give a shout out to this senior class just because it was a culture setter. Campbell raves about this class, that they turned it around after the 2022 disappointing season, and 2021 was really disappointing too. Jalen Knoll was a part of that. Darian Porter was a part of that. Obviously Bo was too. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. We can talk about some of these seniors, but Jalen Knoll to me is in Bo Freiler, but Jalen Knoll to me is just what he did on Saturday was one of the cooler moments in my Iowa State fandom history. Just, he didn't have to play. Mel Kiper has him as a top 10 receiver, and the receiver class this year is good. Like, it's really good. There's going to be about 4 of them that go in the first round. He didn't have to play on Saturday, and Jaden Higgins decided not to. Don't hold anything against Jaden Higgins. But Jalen Knoll, who was kind of seen, if you'd asked me, I thought Higgins was Batman, Knoll was Robin. I just did. I thought Higgins was your go-to guy in the red zone. But Knoll was like, nope, watch me put this team on my back. Watch me lead this team to a victory in a stadium where he was a part of that Clemson Cheez-It Bowl. Like, he was a part of the disappointing senior class, that senior season with Brock and Brees and all of them. So just want to give a shout out to Jalen, who just was super, super reliable and super clutch down the stretch, not only in this game, but multiple games this year, because I mean, it wasn't too far removed where like he dropped a couple punts his sophomore year, dropped a couple of passes that kind of lost some football games with him and Hutchinson in 2022. And just the way he finished out his career, just it's a good definition of what it is like to be a Cyclone in the Matt Campbell era.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, what a great career that he's had for Iowa State. And I think that's what sports is all about, putting those careers together. And obviously, like you said, he's still got a chance to move on and do bigger things outside of Iowa State. But he took the risk and played and was dependable for us. And we don't win, or we don't look like the same team without him. And especially like if you want to go at it from a macro level from the last 5 years that Campbell talks about the leadership of this senior group, they've absolutely changed Iowa State's trajectory, and they've got him out of a dark place and gave him a much better path in the next couple of years. And I think that's kind of the stuff that these bowl games are like, rewards for things like that. So it was really cool to see, and I'm really happy that they were able to go out with a win as well.
The last one I'll give a shout out to is Bo Freiler, just because he goes down with it looked pretty nasty knee injury, man. And this was a guy who comes in as a freshman, replaces Isheem Young. Now, for you Cyclone fans, you remember Isheem Young was damn good early. At least we kind of thought he was. And then he didn't
really
have
good
his
2020 season.
Yes. And then 2021, he's kind of losing reps to this freshman Bo Freiler. And it's like, really? And then he hits the portal and he goes to Ole Miss, and you're like, oh my God, like, are we always going to lose our guys like this? Now, Isheem finished up at North Texas, or I think that was, North Texas. And Bo just had a really, really good career, and he was solid, and he just stepped into those roles right away, battled through a ton of injuries. Like on Cyclone Fanatic, they said he's not even eligible for the draft because his shoulder, like, he medically can't be cleared. So this is a guy who truly probably played his last football game in a Cyclone uniform. But he was just one of those guys that just showed up to battle every day. And like, you think about the Kansas game, man, and he looked rough out there. Like, he couldn't cover anybody, but he's playing with one arm, and he just continues to show up each and every single day. And Iowa State doesn't finish the November that they had without a leader like that in the locker room.
Yeah. Sometimes I ask myself, like, when I'm getting super into like Iowa State football and like into sports, like, why am I a fan, and like, why am I doing this stuff? And then you see guys like Bo Freiler out there who are just giving absolutely everything that they have over the last couple of years, and even playing this year in a year where he knew he wasn't going to be able to go to the NFL because of his shoulder. So he's playing with that much level of pain and practicing and giving it his all every single day. And I think just cheering on guys like that, supporting them, knowing how much it matters to them, just kind of makes it all worth it. So I know 100%. Seeing him go down was really tough on Saturday. And
watching Campbell take him off the field. That was
I knew when Campbell ran out to the field and was like walking him out. It was just kind of a heartbreaking thing to see. So I'm glad they at least got the win, so they had something to celebrate with him there. But yeah, big props to him. Big props to a lot of the guys on the team. It's just like, they make it a lot more fun as fans, and just really appreciative of what he's all done for Iowa State. And I think that's kind of something we all kind of reflect.
Those seniors, a lot of, Miles Purchase, J.R. Singleton, Darian Porter, Steve O'Closs, just like super, super easy guys to root for, like as Cyclone fans. So really appreciative of that senior class. And I think that's just ending it on the 2024 season. That's a good way to close out on that thought. But tonight we got a lot to get to throughout the summer and the off season. So we'll touch on 2025 as we look on to Ireland. Iowa State will be your first college football game of the 2025 season next year. Super pumped for that. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. But before we put our closing thoughts on, early 2025 looks, again, subscribe to the video, subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let us know in the comments what you guys think. shop our partners at shopnorivals.com using the code PTFS at checkout for free shipping on all your athletic apparel there at No Rivals. Justin, two things can be true here. And I'm glad we took the last couple of days to appreciate the season, but two things can be true. Iowa State has a chance to be really, really good this year in 2025. 11 wins is fantastic, but I think there are some, I don't know if major is the right word. I think there are some jarring defensive issues that need to be corrected before, if Iowa State expects to try and win 10 games again next year. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, not at all. I mean, we had a lot of really talented guys on defense, but the way they were playing and the way they were all schemed up, I mean, you could see it in the last two games. How many points did we give up in our last two games? Almost 80.
How many yards? And how many yards per,
Yeah.
like how many yards were they averaging per carry, per play? It was, and then the Kansas game and just, I don't know. I don't think schematically nothing needs to change. There's nobody I trust more than Matt Campbell and John Haycock as far as coaches go in any sport. I trust those guys more than anything. But right now, we're a couple weeks into the portal. It's kind of closing up here for guys hitting the portal. I know we'll have the spring window, but a little disappointed with how Iowa State has recruited on that side of the ball. I don't know where the defensive line, I don't know what it looks like right now, Justin. This is, again, we're in literally January 1st as we're discussing this, but it was a team that was bad against the run this year. And I don't think Iowa State can sustain that if they want to. Like, you're not going to win those one score games next year if you continue to get gashed on the run like you did.
No, this year was one of the best years we've ever had. It was great, obviously. But I don't think we can expect to have the same level of wins next year if we don't see some big improvement, especially on the defensive side. We're going to need some new guys to really step up. Probably going to need Dominique Orange to be a first or second round draft level player.
Yeah.
Linebackers are going to need to stay really healthy. And we're going to see a lot of new guys in the secondary. And it's kind of something that we touched on going into this season where we thought we were going to have to outscore guys. It might be the case again next year. It's going to be a lot of scheme stuff on how that's going. And although how much we love Rocco and how much that guy's fought, I mean, this year, I'd say the year as a whole wasn't necessarily statistically as good as we were hoping it was going to be, but we're going to need to see another jump from him too next year.
And you mentioned, like, are we going to outscore people next year? Honestly, we might be able to just do that again because you've recruited a couple of new receivers. You get Rocco back to back. You have all of your running backs back. You essentially have a pretty good chunk of your offensive line back. So offensively, maybe you're just going to be the team that just scores a lot of points. That'll be a discussion for the offseason. We'll have to wait and see. But it's not something we're used to as Iowa State fans. Iowa State, even with Brock and Brees, like, it was like you want to maintain the lead. You want to start strong, control the tempo, and maintain the lead.
I just don't think it's something that we can just expect that's going to happen. I know we were kind of cautiously optimistic this year, and this year was a really pleasant surprise that they were as successful and they were in one-score games as it happened. So I just don't really think it's something that we can just walk into next year expecting, but that's the standard, especially with having the bullseye on our back next year after going to the Big 12 championship. It's going to be even that much harder. So even our good players, we're going to need to even see some improvement out of them.
Speaking of bullseye on your back next year, this is the last thing we'll touch on before we close you guys out tonight. Justin, I was thinking about this last night. The schedule for next year, it's tough. It is for all, like, case in point, like Big 12, it's a tough schedule. Let's go through it a little bit. Not only is, like, the spotlight on you, but now you talk about bullseye on your back. The first college football game of the season is played across the ocean against a team that you left a sour taste in their mouth the last 2 years.
Kansas State, we kind of own them, so that shouldn't be a big deal for us.
That's true. But maybe they just need to turn different soil. So just a new turn of the page there. But Kansas State's going to be fired up to play that game, man. Like, there's going to be a lot of animosity, I think. I hate that draw. Just like, could we have played somebody in the non-con? Like, why did we have to play Kansas State first game of the year? Next game, you come back home against an FCS opponent who it's no slouch. South Dakota comes to town, and they were a top 5 team this year, finished in the semifinals as in the FCS playoffs, and their quarterback is, I believe it's Aiden Bowman, however you want to say it. This guy came in with Hunter Deckers, and he's really good, man. Like, he's really good at FCS play. Like, that's going to be a team who's head and shoulders better than North Dakota. And guys, we remember how Iowa State played against North Dakota. Wasn't great. Granted, that will be their second game of the year now, but it's going to be interesting. And we haven't even gotten to the other games. You're going to Jonesboro. You play at Arkansas State, who I believe gets Jalen Rayner back next year. You have Iowa coming to town because Iowa State, has had so much success the last 10 years in Jack Trice Stadium against that team. And then here is your home games in Big 12 play, Justin. Arizona State, BYU, Kansas, Arizona. I didn't even mention the road games. And I have to go back and look at the road games, but that's our schedule for 2025.
It's going to be fun.
It will be. It will be a lot of fun. Seriously, like Iowa State we had fun home games. The results were fun, but I thought the home schedule this year sucked.
No,
I mean, it sucked. You didn't get anybody good that really came to town.
It's going to be really good for ticket sales next year. And you never know. I mean, especially in the Big 12, we talk about it so much, but you never really know when you play them, how you're playing them, injuries, how some of those games are going to match up. But I feel like this year Iowa State played a lot of the games where they feel teams out, like in the first quarter. They kind of started slow and had a lot of those second half comebacks. If we go into next year and coach and go into those games that way, where we're not coming out right away ready to play, I think it's going to bite us in the ass and end up with a lot of losses. I think that was kind of a problem that they had in 2021. They were kind of feeling teams out and thought they could just show up. Look at the college football playoff now and look at what these really good teams are doing. A lot of the games end up being kind of close, but why do these good, like big teams keep winning? Because they're jumping out to these huge leads and they're showing up right away and they're ready to punch them in the mouth. I think that's something that these Matt Campbell teams have really struggled with and something that I'm really going to be paying attention to next year.
And also, I mean, this year they were okay, but Iowa State is a horrendous August/September football team, I shouldn't say horrendous, but it's not even close to the peak of what
the level of play they're playing like October.
Yes. Thank you. So it's going to be fascinating. Again, we have literally 8 months to talk about it, but just like quick glance, you look at the schedule, you're like, whoa. As a fan, I am jacked up, like to Arizona State and BYU coming to town. If those are going to be two teams who play up to what they did this year, those are going to be awesome home games for Iowa State. Awesome home games. I think the Arizona State game, that's going to be a tough ticket. I just looking at it initially, it's going to be a tough ticket to get in, and you get a rematch of the Big 12 title. Not to mention, you do play Deion Sanders next year for the first time in the Big 12. You travel to Boulder.
Hopefully we're at both those games.
100%. 100%. Justin, this was a lot of fun tonight, going 50 minutes long. Hope this was more enjoyable to you guys listening to this than the Oregon-Ohio State game was, because boy, that was a real dud. But we get one more tomorrow night. Thoughts and prayers do go out to everyone in New Orleans, but I am really excited for that battle between Georgia and Notre Dame tomorrow night. Justin, any more closing thoughts on Iowa State bowl season, college football playoff before we get out of here for the first time in 2025?
Nothing too major. I mean, it's sad that the season's finally coming to an end. I had a lot of fun this year covering it with you. I mean, shout out to anyone who's still listening to this. Shout out to all you guys who listened and followed along with us and went to the Iowa State games and cheered them on. Shout out to Iowa State for having such a great season and being so fun to watch and cheer for. So just appreciate everyone and hope everyone's got a good start to the new year in 2025.
Very well said. Yeah, I'm excited. What it's going to look like for Justin and I throughout the off season, we'll see. If you guys want more content, you let us know in the comments what you want us to talk about. Like, we are all eyes and ears here. We're growing this thing, and you guys help us out. So if you want us to talk about something, we surely will. I think we're aiming once a month maybe once every other week. Maybe we'll go twice a month. We'll see what happens. We'll see what kind of coverage there is with the Iowa State football team this year. But I have a feeling, Justin, we are going to get a lot of buzz when the month of August, when that Iowa State Kansas State game rolls around. I think we're going to get a lot of outside viewers, and it being the first game of the year, this is why we do it, right? Like this is as fun as it gets. So I think that's going to be an awesome opportunity. Hope you guys had a great start to your 2025. The Cyclones had an awesome finish to 2024, and it couldn't be a better time to be a Cyclone fan. Football, basketball, anything in between. If you wear the Cardinal and gold, it's a great time to be a Cyclone. Appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. My name is Jake. You can follow me there on my Twitter at JSchaeferCFB. My co-host Justin. We will be back very soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening. ShopNoRivals.com. Use the code PTFS. For the first time here in 2025, like I always send us out, go Cyclones.